Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video today. This is going to be part 4 of the Bullitt build. We're going to be continuing on with the supercharger install, and we're going to be starting off with installing the fuel injectors and then continue with the install. So be sure to check out part 5 where we actually complete the install of the supercharger, and it looks pretty sweet. And then after that, we're going to be installing these Wilwood brakes, which I've already got one side done here, as you can see. And then we're going to be finishing it off with a set of wheels and tires. We'll give you a little sneak peek of these sweet wheels and tires. These are some Shelby wheels. They are 20 by 10s in the back, 20 by 9s in the front, with some Nito 555 G2s. Then we're going to be installing a couple of gauges with a 2-gauge pod. So be sure to check out all the videos as they come out. Appreciate it. Let's get to the video. Okay, so I got them all out, kind of cleaned up here a little bit. The injectors that we're going with are Ford Performance 47-pound injectors. So this stuff here is an O-ring lubricant. This stuff works great. I got it from a friend of mine that in his field, he has to replace a lot of components that have O-rings, and he gets this stuff by the bag full. And it really works good. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lube it up a little bit. Definitely don't want to get it on the inside of the injector. So I just do a little bit around it. Like I say, I keep it off of the injector itself. I mean, it's probably not too much of a concern on this side because the fuel's going to spray it off, but I definitely don't want to get any on the inside there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this bottom one. And these things, they just slip right in with that stuff. I'm going to get them all in first, clean my hands up because this stuff is really gummy. And then I'll pop the locks back on. As soon as I get them on, I'm just going to go ahead and go pop them on the intake. And so you hear that it sounds like they got some kind of little jigsaw going over there. So I got all these locks in, except the last one I was going to show you. Obviously I wasn't going to go over and show you doing them all. They're all the same, but so there is a little groove right there and right there, and when you shove that up in there, that section right in there has to go in that groove like that. And then also, as you can see, those tabs have to lock inside that groove, and then also is going to be on top of this lip on there. So I'm going to pull this back out, because if you was to shove this all the way up in there, that groove will disappear and you won't be able to get that on there. So I compared it to those, and pretty much goes up in there the same distance. You put it all the way in, and you just barely pull it out just a little bit, and you'll see the groove start peeking out right there. And then this section here, you know, goes down, and you try to walk it on here without cutting your fingers. So I just kind of get it started on one side. And then once you get it on, I just kind of pop that one on there. That one's already popped on, and that's it. So it's hard to just push them on because these things got to flare open. So I try to get one side on, the top or the bottom, whichever. And then once I do that, then I can get the screwdriver and just pop, it pops it right in. And that's it. It won't come out and it won't turn. They stay locked. So that is it. They are ready to go back on. So I'm gonna go ahead and go over here and pop them on the intake. All right, we'll go ahead and get this thing on here. I made sure, you know, these are all cleaned up. I kind of cleaned it up before I even put the intake on. These go on real easy. Just have to get everything out of the way. Let me sit this side first. This vacuum line out of the way. Since they're lubed up, just kind of wiggle them, they pop right in. And these have got some studs on them. Get them in there. The intake, since it's a plastic intake and it has O-rings for seals, the torque specs on this intake to the head was 89 inch-pounds. So that's kind of important. You definitely don't want to over tighten them because you can crack the intake, and that's not a good thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these tightened up. These don't tighten up too much either because you're screwing into a metal fastener that is molded into the intake, but you still don't want to over tighten it. So I'm not gonna, since there's no O-rings or anything that I'm going up against here, I'm not gonna put a torque wrench on it, but I'm just gonna snug them. I'm not gonna over tighten them. It's definitely in the inch-pounds. It's probably, I'm sure it's in the inch-pounds range. That's good. All right, so I got the plug back here plugged in. I went ahead and got this wiring harness. It's got a little spot on it here that pops down on the stud back here. I got that on. And I went ahead and popped the fuel line on. I went ahead and did that. I don't want no trash getting in there. Got it locked on. All that does is just slide on. I lubed the O-ring up a little bit. There's 2 O-rings on there. And I'll slide it on, and then it pops in. The spring actually goes over the lip on the rail, locks it in. This is just a safety clip that holds it on. That doesn't actually hold it on. So, and then as far as this goes, I get like a zip tie, put around it. And you can grab this zip tie and then twist it like this with a pair of needle nose, and it really tightens the heck out of them. And then you just nip it off. I mean, that's something you can do on small hoses like that, because some of them clamps are they're just too big for these. And I mean, it really tightens it down. And there's obviously the barb sticking out. It's got a larger end on it, so it will not come off at all. So that's something you can do. You know, eventually after a lot of miles, I mean a lot of miles, these might get brittle because they're plastic, and you just change them, put new ones on. I always tell the customers about them. That way down the road, if they get brittle, they can pop them off, and I show them how to do it. So that's just something you always kind of want to do to keep from any vacuum leaks happening. So I'm not going to pop any of these back in place until I change the spark plugs. I've got to do that next. I'm already got the spark plugs out, and I'm just going to, you know, show you guys. I'm sure you know this, but anytime you pull out your coil packs out of any type of motor, before you pull the spark plugs out, you want to blow them out, because you'll get sand and all kinds of debris in there. I usually look in there with a flashlight before I pull the spark plugs out, and I blow out the holes real good, make sure there's nothing in there, because you really don't want anything falling down into the cylinder. And then these are the spark plugs that came out. They're just stock Motorcraft Platinum. They had platinum. I'm surprised they didn't have iridium, but they're not in bad shape. You know, they do have a lot larger of a gap. So the spark plugs that we went with is actually, it's funny, it's NGK iridium, which is what we typically run in a lot of our boosted Coyotes. Not this particular plug, but the NGKs. And the part number on this, it was a Ford Performance part number. I'll show you here. So this is the box that came in. So when you look this up, it's a Ford Performance spark plug, 3-valve, 12-millimeter thread. It's 1 step colder than stock, and it's basically for boosted applications. So you can get these, you know, this part number. It's an M-12405-3V12MM. And that's the part number for a 3-valve, you know, 4.6. And these are designed for the boosted applications. These are the ones I believe that came in, you know, like the Roushes and all that stuff. 1 step colder. And also the gap on them was pretty tight. They were about 28 thousandths already pre-gapped. I opened them up a little bit. I don't think 28, that's a little bit tight. We typically run 26 on a Coyote that's boosted to 10 pounds of boost or 12, even 28. I run 26 on mine, and I've been as high as 15 pounds on my car, and I haven't blown the flame off of mine at all. And I've taken it to 7,500, 7,800 RPM, and I've never, ever had an issue blowing the flame off the plug. So I just think 28 is too tight for this. So I opened them up to 30. And honestly, I could have probably went to 35, but I'm just going to go to 30 on these. With this pulley and this head unit, it's supposed to be around 8 pounds of boost, 8 or 9. So we're not going to have an issue at all. I could probably open these up to 35 thousandths, but I think 30 would be fine. So you're not supposed to do anything to these, you know, as far as gapping. You can if you do it right. I always use this flat one to check. You don't want to put any pressure at all on that tip, because you'll bend it. I just throw it in there nice and easy. Walk it around nice and easy until I get to where I'm at. I'm at about 30 to 32. That's kind of where I wanted to be. You can get one of these. I don't like using these for gapping, but I buy this just to use this part here. You can actually stick that in there without touching the porcelain in there or the tip. You can open this up or you can close it. Sometimes if you go to close it, you can hit that porcelain and break them. So I usually just get the tip and I'll just tap on the tip just a little bit down on, you know, on the floor. I usually use my toolbox over there, and you can close the gap on it, and then you can check it with this. If you have to open it up, then I use this to open it. A lot of guys will use these. You can use these on copper plugs. Copper is no problem. You can go in there and actually open them up, you know, with copper. You won't bend that. But when you use the iridium or platinum, you don't want to open them up with this, because you'll bend those or break them. And a lot of guys, I've heard them say, oh, that's all I ever use. I've never had any issues. Well, I think you're lucky that you haven't, because these things will break off or bend really easy. So just keep that in mind anytime you need to gap these. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in. This is a special spark plug socket for these. They actually lock in pretty tight. The problem is when I use these to go back in, they stay stuck on a spark plug because they really lock on tight. It's basically a 14 millimeter. I just use a hose. This hose slips on just enough to hold it. And I will put it in there and get it started. I'm gonna go ahead and do all of them. I got a little bit of anti-seize on there. I didn't put very much, just a little bit. So I'm gonna run them all in with this hose, and then I'm gonna use the 14 millimeter socket that I have, just a regular long deep well. And that way, when I tighten them up, it'll pull right off. It won't stick to the plug. So I basically only use the spark plug socket for these just to get them out. I could go ahead and use that plug, that spark plug socket, and my extension will come off, and then I can reach down in there with a pair of needle nose and grab them and pull them off the spark plug, but I'll just do it like this. Yeah, I just use the regular socket. We'll go ahead and run them all the way in by hand first. Want to make sure you're straight down on the spark plug. You don't want to be at an angle at all. If you're at an angle, you may break the spark plug or crack it. So I'm just going to run them in like that and then snug them up. These don't have washers on them. These are a tapered seat. And I just snug them up. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop the coil packs back in. They came out okay without any issues. Make sure they go on all the way down there. I even kind of looked them over, made sure there was no arcing or any splits on the boots or anything. They look good. One thing, these are so easy to change, spark plugs. You know, there's nothing in the way. I already moved the wiring harness out of the way just to give me some room here, pulling the intake off, whatever, but these are easy to get to. These are actually a 7 millimeter instead of an 8 millimeter. They're 7 on the actual socket that fits them. Go back over them, make sure they're good tight.
I'll be plugging them in here a little bit later. I gotta leave all this wiring harness out of the way because this part here still plugs into the cam sensor. I gotta get this belt situated first. And once I get the belt situated first, then I'll be able to put all that in and get everything I gotta do on that deal. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the other side done. And so I got the spark plugs in on this side too. I went ahead and gapped them. Went ahead and put a little NECs on them. Put them in. Got the coil packs in. I got everything plugged in. I went ahead and got the wiring harness all plugged in on this side. On that side I didn't because I still got some stuff to do over there. But on this side, I needed to get it prepped up and see how things are going to fit for this coolant reservoir. I went ahead and installed the coolant reservoir, and this is a small little fill reservoir for the intercooler since it's liquid cooled. I did have to kind of move some stuff around here. So on this kit, the factory reservoir goes right here, and they supply you with this one. It's another plastic one. You can actually get these from Canton Racing Products. They make an aluminum one that's all angled just like this if you wanted to do an aluminum one. But this is the one that comes from Vortech. It's got a bracket here that's adjustable that basically bolts to this bolt that's on the back side of the bracket for the computer. And then it came with this big bracket here that bolts to the strut tower, and they've got it set up to where the strut tower brace that the Bullitt has will bolt right over this, and it's also adjustable. So what I had to do, first of all, this harness that runs right along here was attached right down here. There's a tab there. I had to pull that up and bring the harness up off of the valve cover and shove it this way, so it actually goes around like this. And then I also had to take it up underneath this reservoir. So it was okay. I mean, it wasn't too bad. Just had to detach it from the valve cover and just kind of bring it up and around. And then there was another cable harness that come out of the bottom of the fuse box here, and I had to unhook it where it was attached to the strut tower, and so it would drop down and go under and then back up. It attaches to this harness underneath right here. So I got plenty of room there. Had to bend the AC line this way. This is pretty much, it tells you to do all this in the instructions, but it was a little bit of a different scenario with this wiring harness. They wanted, in the instructions, it said to unhook the harness and drop it all the way down and zip tie it to the AC line down here. Well, there was no room for that because all the injector and coil wires are short. There was no way to bring it this way. So that might be for a 2005 through 2007 Mustang. Those are different than the 2008 and up. 2008, 2009, and 2010. They're just a little different. So you just have to use your imagination, just common sense, and kind of figure it out. So once I got that in place, I also had to make sure that I had enough clearance to bring the hose right here. There was no way for it to clear the bracket, but I was able to get it adjusted enough to where I can get that hose on it. That hose there it actually connects to, so I want to route it right along here. It's going to go right along the top of this power steering hose that I had to relocate, and then it's going to connect to this hose. This hose will be, it'll be cut, and then it'll be, you know, zip tied up here real nice. This hose is the one that went to the bottom of the factory coolant reservoir right here. So that'll be one of the last things I do. And then this hose, it's going to just run along here. They say to trim this piece here, which you do, and then it will come and lay in here, and attached to this hose, which goes right back into the top of the radiator. This hose actually went to the top of the factory reservoir. This is the same setup, kind of like on the Coyote Mustangs. I've done some installs on 2011 through 14. This is exact same tank and same principle as the Coyotes. So of course on the Coyotes, the superchargers mount over here on this side. They don't mount over here. So that's pretty much it for that. So the only thing, let me turn this light back on. Once I got all this fitted, there's a 5/8 heater hose that connects to the bottom of this. There's a hose barb like this that I had to screw into it that goes straight down. And I got that heater hose running down. I don't want to get it close to the manifold, so I got it running down. It actually comes on this side of this AC line, down under there. It goes underneath, you can see it right there. It goes underneath this harness. It comes out right here, and it will attach to the top of the pump right here.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and end this video here. So I sure appreciate you guys sticking with it and checking this out. Be sure to check out part 5 of this build. That's when we're going to be finishing up this supercharger. Please like, subscribe, and share. Be sure to check out all the other videos on this build. Appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next video.